Right, we all know Sky News and we all know Kay Burley. Kay Burley specifically as a presenter, she has a very specific style and sometimes she could get annoying. Sometimes she's pretty good actually in terms of being professional. But Sky News have become so biased over the last couple of years that they make the BBC seem actually neutral. There's an incident that happened a couple of days ago, which is quite embarrassing. It's actually, I find it difficult to watch again, but some of you have seen, because it was kind of trending on Twitter, a few people have been tweeting it, is the Priti Patel was interviewed by Kay Burley on Sky about what's happening with the lockdown, but also the internal market bill with Brexit. And Kay Burley has this style of, she interviews the person and then she stands up usually and then just talks about other things. She walks away from the set and talk about other news. This time she decided to do something different, which was kind of unusual for everybody because there have been a lot of tweets about from even people on the liberal side or the left saying this was a bit unusual for Sky News and Kay Burley. So let's actually watch the clip because essentially what happened was after the interview was finished, as you can see in that picture, Kay Burley told Priti Patel to sit down, don't move, just stay there. Even though we're not going to see you again, but just sit there for a bit. Then she walked away and decided to essentially gossip about Priti Patel behind her back while she's still sitting there. Let's watch the interview.
Well, I can't comment on that because I just don't know the details behind it.
Okay, so when do you expect the report? Because
there is a Cabinet Office process that is underway on that.
Okay, and you'll be glad when it's finally reported.
I've said, Kay, there's a process that is being followed.
Okay, it's good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. Stay with us for just a second, if you would. Joe Pike is joining us. Hey, Joe.
Priti Patel, I think, always likes to be seen as a tough Home Secretary, tough on law and order, and very interesting, Kay, to hear what she said on the rules of COVID-19, saying that it is a personal choice, but I would call the police, she said, if she saw a
So, okay, there's a few... I try my best not to laugh because it's actually quite embarrassing for everybody, including Sky. I don't know how they managed to do that. So she's sitting there. And they're now coming up with other questions, including, what Priti Patel has said. I'm not even at this point defending or criticizing Priti Patel's comments or views on anything or her policies, because, sometimes I agree with her, sometimes I don't. But in this case, Joe Pike obviously came up with all these other questions and comments that, Priti Patel, for example, hasn't actually answered this question, or she has this strong stance in this. But she's right there. If you have another question, just ask her. Let her talk. But they managed to just get her to sit down and just listen to them while they gossip behind her back. I don't think, jokes aside, this is not how the mainstream media should behave. We live in a country where, again, rightly or wrongly, we have this Ofcom regulator that's supposed to be there to make sure we don't see things like this. The mainstream outlets are supposed to be impartial. They're supposed to be professional. And I don't think you would see this even on the BBC. And this is my problem with Sky News recently. Not everybody who works there, but the agenda, the mentality of people who work there, it's getting kind of ridiculous now because it's not just anti-Tory, obviously anti-Brexit, but also anything that's not woke. Because Sky News have been actually promoting a lot of political campaigns. From the oceans to the trees and, obviously the BLM movement. So guys, sort it out. But the mainstream media are dying. This is the whole problem. And that's fine because we are the media. Before I go to the next bit, don't forget, because we are the media, we got the new merchandise, as you can see. That's Lacey and I posing with my terrible hair. Get your t-shirts, coffee mugs and everything else. You could find the link in the description as usual. Now, this is the first episode of our new segment, Video Q&A. As you know, obviously on Mondays we have the normal Q&As where members post their questions in the comment section and I answer them. This is actually for everybody, non-members as well. They can actually you can actually send your questions via WhatsApp or email. Again, all the details are in the description. Let's go to the first question from Lewis.
Hello, mate. My question to you is, after doing a case study on the gender pay gap and a video on that, I found that countries that are more egalitarian, so for example Norway, Denmark and Sweden, the Nordic countries, that are forcing too much equality in these countries in terms for gender roles in the workplace, is finding that the opposite effect is happening. Do you think that if that was implemented in the UK, that it would work, or it would somehow then end up like these Nordic countries, and too much forced choice is not necessarily the best outcome?
So that's a brilliant question, Lewis. It's not even necessarily, because that's what they say, it's forced choice. It's not even forced choice, it's forced outcome. And that's the biggest problem that we have. The mentality of specifically countries like Sweden, Denmark isn't that bad yet, but Sweden especially, is they have tried this experiment of in the name of making sure that the equality of outcome happens, especially on the company board, or the political system, or the top executive jobs, the jobs that until now they've been dominated by a lot of men. But the problem with the if I say the left or whatever they are, is that they always think it's just because of the, on the surface, the gender male that's kind of been helping it. As Jordan Peterson has said repeatedly for the past few years, it's the mentality of it's the masculinity that's kind of dominated the ground. And if you try to force people, and this applies to both genders, male and female, who are more feminine, because it's not all just like women. You have a situation where if you force, or at least in terms of encouragement, for all women, you now have to aim to become executives or prime ministers, then there's a collapse in society in terms of actual free choice, because not everybody, just like how not all women want to be executives, not all men also want to be executives. The majority of men don't have these top jobs. The majority of people who have these top jobs happen to be men because of the masculine mentality, and we have to address this. And I think the best way to do it, whilst the Scandinavian experiment didn't work, obviously the 1950s America also didn't work. So all you have to do is create a truly free society that obviously you have good education and good encouragement for both genders, whether masculine, feminine, or whatever, and then let people decide. Stop forcing people to do something that they don't want. Again, that also includes a lot of boys, because this is for example, certain cultures in Asia, young boys are being forced or encouraged by their parents to all become either lawyers or doctors. That's also bad. So that's kind of similar category, but slightly different. Right, so next question is Tom from Bath.
Hi Maya, my name's Tom from Bath in the West Country, and my question is, when England leave the EU, do you think that afterwards this will have a snowball effect and that other countries will start leaving the EU as well, and eventually the whole thing will crumble? Thank you, cheers.
Thank you very much for that question, Tom. Firstly, let's correct it. It's not England, it's the UK. The unionists gonna go crazy. So no, the United Kingdom when they leave. So this domino effect, I don't fully believe in the way a lot of people are predicting it, because the way Britain did the whole referendum and the whole process, firstly it took a long time to even push for the agenda, and then we got the referendum and the result that we had. It's because whether you like it or not, the British mentality is very, very different to the rest of the continent. And so it's highly unlikely that any other country, including Italy or all the other certain Eastern European countries, would leave in peacetime. There is the domino effect would definitely happen because of Brexit. The moment there's a big problem, for example, the Eurozone crisis happens again and things like that, then yes, I agree. There are a lot of countries, like the Italian opposition, are coming up. And there are also a lot of countries, even France. So everyone obviously is looking at the establishment right now with Blair. It does look like with Macron and a few others. But don't take France for granted just because they put all the EU flags across Paris. Doesn't mean all the French people love the EU. So we'll see how it goes. Next question is from Tim.
Hi Maya, do you think the EU will relax the Schengen rules for UK citizens after we leave the EU at the end of the year, or will they insist on the stringent 90 days in 180 days?
Yeah, so that's actually a good question, because I don't think, if there's a no deal, which is could be happening, you have a situation where the European Union will be very angry. So I think one of the agreements, which was based on citizens' rights, could change. But again, that goes back to good faith and bad faith, because the UK government has already clarified and said regardless of the trade deal, because of the withdrawal agreement, the EU citizens could still have the right to stay and work here, the ones who are already here. So if the European Union decide not to do the same, it's not going to be a good look for them. If there is a normal trade deal or whatever, then they will definitely go with what they've already agreed, which is any Brit who is already in Europe, they will have a more relaxed arrangement. I don't think it will be, when it comes to Schengen, when it comes to traveling across Europe, don't think anything will change for them. But because there's a lot of pressure, because it's still, even though both sides have agreed, there's still a lot of pressure for both sides to make sure that their citizens have full freedom. So that's going to happen anyway. Petco is the next question.
David Lammy, the Labour MP, branded David Vance's tweet responding to Rashford as a racist. And can you comment on that? How is it racist, pointing out some issues in the community?
Okay, this is actually one of the things I always think about, because regardless of what the actual issues or topics are, these days you can't talk about things, or you can't criticize anyone if they tick certain boxes for the woke side. So Marcus Rashford, for example, he's a football player, plays for Man United, and he also started this crusade recently against the government on free kind of free lunches for schools and school kids. And there's a lot of other issues that Marcus Rashford is starting debates on, and I feel like you can't really criticize certain people. Or it's like Lewis Hamilton all over again. But it goes back to the identity politics of the left, and tomorrow we are releasing the Lawrence Fox interview, and I discussed this in detail with him. So make sure to actually watch the interview tomorrow, because he mentioned a lot about identity politics and how these people get so tribal that, as Petko said, you can't even debate an issue because they say, well, you're not allowed to, because this is an area where, for example, especially if you're white, you have no say. Or if you're like me, brown, but you're not really brown because you're right wing, you don't really count. Last question from Robin.
Hi, Mayor. Can you tell me, if we leave with no deal, will the withdrawal agreement be cancelled, and will we also save the £39 billion payment we are expected to make to the EU?
So the withdrawal agreement, well, in terms of all the ties that we have and we've had during the transition, yes, it will definitely stop. The only area that was always tricky was the Northern Ireland Protocol, and which would essentially divide the UK. The Northern Ireland side and the Great Britain side will be divided, and obviously the governments are planning to make some changes so that and use it as a deterrent in case the European Union decide to break their own obligations first. Then we could use that to make sure that when we leave without a deal, we're an independent sovereign country. 39 billion, I don't think that will change, because most of it is actually what we have owed. Not all of it, because it's just a random number they decided to come up with. The accountants at the EU are very, very competent. But this is, I don't think this is a debate, considering the government are spending so much more money on random stuff these days. I'm not really concerned about the 39 billion if that actually allows us to become a free country. My issue is that should have been debated and negotiated even better. I mean, it was actually 100 billion at first, so it's a lot better now. So that's the kind of questions that we have this week. Thank you again to Lewis, Tom, Tim, Petko and Robin. There were a lot of other questions as well, but as I said, check out all the details in the description. I've got the WhatsApp phone number and the email address. Send your question, do a selfie video, 20 seconds max if you could, otherwise they go for ages. Try not to make speeches. Quick question, guys, and I'll try to answer them in the next week's video as usual. And thanks again for watching. Don't forget to get your merch. Don't forget to support the channel by becoming a member. The link is in the description, youtube.com/mytc/join, and I'll see you guys in the next video.